You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Wissota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Well, good morning. It is 7:06. Nice to have you here up north on this Monday morning, June 23rd, 2025, the last full weekend of June of the quarter of this first half of 2025. Already. Coming up on the program, we're going to be talking to Tracy Ann Mangold. She's a former top official with the 8th Congressional District Republican Party and is going to talk about not just how a lot of traditional Republicans have left the party, but what's been left in its wake. And that includes a report over the weekend that the state Republican Party chair may be on the verge of being ousted because the Trump supporters who have essentially taken over the party are dissatisfied with the job that he's doing. So we'll talk about that a bit. Jimmy Kuska will be along to talk about sports. In our next hour, we will talk to State Representative Francesca Hong about the state budget process and what a process it is when folks who talk a good game about bipartisanship decide they don't want to when it suits them. Dr. Kristen Lyerly is here joining us from the nation's capital. Parker Olson is in Madison Studio A2. And meteorologist Brittany Merlot is here to tell us about the heat, the humidity, the rain that's come through. Some showers just moved through the Chippewa Valley here today or this morning. Kind of, Brittany, almost refreshing. We needed a little shower after all that heat yesterday. Though I got to say, if you were in a shady spot and with that stiff wind of 20 miles an hour, it was not the ugliest, 100-degree heat index day you'd ever have.
No, it wasn't too bad. I
No.
liked the breeze. It helped.
Yeah.
But, that mugginess, though, there's no escaping that unless you were in the AC or right up against Lake Superior. I'll tell you, temperatures down there in the mid-50s, even further away, just into Ashland, temperatures were into those low to mid-90s. So some crazy stuff still going on. It's 54 degrees at Superior, Lake Superior, 82 degrees right now into Ashland. Our lows have been hovering in the 80s. The mugginess has been stuck here, and today is the last day. Like Pat had said, a cold front is moving through. It's sparking up a few showers into northwestern places of the state, and then it's going to continue to push southeast. Now, as we go through this afternoon, as it hits the hot, humid air that's still down there, we're still looking at heat advisories for the south and eastern half of the state. So that continues until about 7 o'clock tonight. We're still looking at heat index reaching about the low 100s. Temperatures in the mid-90s far southwest. While up north, it's in the upper 70s today. So yes, some free AC is on the way, but we've got to get through some storms that could potentially be strong to severe. Now, those are going to start to fire up probably around a line from La Crosse, north to Winona or so, then kind of take that up towards Wausau, just south of Rhinelander, and then the whole Fox Valley, Sheboygan area to northern Milwaukee, and then you kind of cut that down towards Janesville. So all of the areas in between, Madison, central Wisconsin, all of these places are at a slight risk from the Storm Prediction Center for these strong to severe storms, which at first are going to pack the potential for a tornado or two, or maybe some large hail. So that'll be around 1 to 2 o'clock this afternoon as that starts. And then as the line progresses this evening into the Fox Valley and Madison area, probably around 6 or 7 or so, straight line winds become a risk there. Maybe 60, 70 mile per hour wind gusts. And then it starts to fizzle out around Milwaukee around midnight. And then you think we're in the clear, but we're not. This front is going to be parking itself over the state, continuing to give us showers and storms. And flooding then becomes a potential as we go into Wednesday and Thursday with heavy rain still continuing. So torrential downpours out there today, high winds, definitely a risk. And then, of course, hail or tornado may be early.
Okay, we'll pay attention to that forecast. Rob says, good morning from Tigerton. Sunny and 77 after an overnight low of 75 over the weekend. Tigerton had highs of 92 on Saturday, 95 on Sunday. He says he mowed the lawn on Saturday morning. Let's see. He mentions concrete buckling on a few areas along Highway 29 in Shawano County. An accident along Highway 29 in the Wittenberg area that caused some major backups. He says he has to adjust his mowing schedule today. His truck is in the shop. Supposed to be in Wittenberg mowing today, but he'll have to do yards in Tigerton where he keeps his other lawn tractor. It's always good to have one or the other. He says when he watered flowers on Main Street in Tigerton, it felt good handling the water without getting cold.
Yeah.
that would be one of the nice side effects of the heat wave like this. And says hi to his 4 favorite people on a Monday morning. Let's see. We mentioned Sonic the Hedgehog anniversary on this day in history. Tony says Sega was my console growing up. No Nintendo in my house. Sonic for life. Alicia, OMG. I remember playing Sonic when it first came out. And we were trying to discuss what is porridge. Tony has the answer here on YouTube. Porridge is trash. Is what he has to say. So
tell us how you really feel, Tony, right?
Right. Brittany, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Yes.
And we'll see you next hour for a little update on the forecast coming up as well. In sports, Parker Olson has the top story in sports, but we're going to bury that lead and tell you first that the Brewers were winners. They swept the Twins, swept all 3 games of that series, 9-8 yesterday. Rhys Hoskins homered and doubled and drove in 2 runs. Bryce Terang hit a 3-run homer. Caleb Durbin had 3 hits for the Brewers. They've now won 4 in a row. They're just 3.5 games back of the Cubs now. Jacob Misiorowski, fresh off pitching 5 no-hit innings in his first major league game, on Friday night against the Twins, took a perfect game into the 7th inning on Friday. So he had 11 total innings of no-hit ball to start a career. The first starting pitcher to do that since 1900. He will be pitching again Wednesday afternoon for the Brewers when they play the Pirates, and the Pirates will have their ace pitcher, Paul Skeens, on the mound. So Wednesday afternoon's game is going to be a big one at American Family Field. Not that to take anything away from tonight's game. You can get coverage of that starting at 6:05 on several Civic Media stations. Head over to the website and learn more. But yeah, Jacob Misiorowski, pretty good pitcher. Parker Olson saw a pretty good pitcher at the Madison Mallards game over the weekend as well. An actual no-hitter, complete game all the way through.
Yeah, it was really exciting. It was like 4th or 5th inning, I think. I was in the press box working that camera, and everyone kind of like started going, hey, you should look at the scoreboard, but don't say anything. Because if we jinx this...
Don't ruin it.
Yeah, we're going to be in trouble if we mess this up.
Isaac Milburn was the
Yes.
pitcher's name, is the pitcher's name, I guess I should say. Where's he from?
He goes to Purdue. I believe he's actually from Kentucky.
Okay. So he did that. A 1-0 victory. How about that for run support?
Yeah.
He had 10 strikeouts and 2 walks. And was really came in handy since the Mallards only managed 6 hits in the game, and that was always my worry for Jacob Misiorowski, was giving the kid run support.
Yeah, it's usually the pitching or the bats for the Brewers, it feels like.
Yes, yeah. So anyway, so that had to be fun looking at that and going, you don't want to say anything because you don't want to jinx it, and then you go, wait a minute, what is a jinx anyway? But we abide by it anyway.
Rob's comment about OKC. Did you watch that last night? That was fun.
No.
I just dipped in briefly to see that Oklahoma City was well ahead and won the NBA title. First time they've won it in Oklahoma City. I know it's been 17 years. I still
think Seattle.
Think back. I still feel bad for Seattle for losing the Supersonics when that team won a title in 1979 and then relocated to Oklahoma City 2008, I believe it was. So congratulations, Oklahoma City, for having a little something to cheer about there as well. So,
can we also send congratulations to Team Vitality that won the Blast TV Austin Major 2025 in Counter-Strike 2 in Austin, Texas over the weekend? Do you know people do that?
What the hell are you talking about?
How many of those words did you understand, Pat?
None. I just read it. 40,000 people went to Austin, Texas to watch people play a video game, and like 9 hours a day of video game playing, including my oldest son, Abe, who loves this, and I do not understand. So if you gamers are out there, congratulations.
To all
Yeah.
gamers, not to all gamers.
Look, the first time that I heard about, quote unquote esports of just watching people play video games, obviously I wanted to poo-poo it. And then of course people said, well, how's that any different than watching a football game or a baseball game or whatever? I don't know, because we're watching people using their bodies, their arms, their legs, and not just a thumb on button A and a thumb on button B or something like that. So again, showing my age.
Do you?
That's all I needed to play Pong, back in the day. So,
How do you think you would do at video games today, Pat?
oh, awful!
Okay.
Absolutely awful.
Okay.
We had a Nintendo Wii for a while,
Ooh.
and I'll tell you why. And then Kristen, if I run out of time, don't let me forget to ask about the weekend Dr. Kristen Lyerly show. But when Mason was born, our oldest grandchild, 18 years ago, I remember seeing a news report about how, hey, if you're a grandparent, you should start to learn some of these video games so that you can play with your kid. It'll be a great bonding experience and everything else. So we thought, okay, let's do that. Let's try. And, so again, we're talking 2007, 8, 9, something like that. And the games were somewhat manageable. And at some point it was just, Mason, have a good time. Come upstairs for some cookies when you're done, because there was just no way to keep up with what you have to do with these things now. I miss Pong. I miss Ms. Pac-Man. I don't want to have to use, 3 different fingers here, 2 here, and 2 toes, to try to make sure that I'm firing in all the right directions or whatever it is I'm trying to say here.
I have tried, and when my kids are like, no, Mom, hey, one on the side. Hey, I just can't keep up with it. I can't do it.
No. So again, it's not that it's not a talent. It's not that it's not something that you'd like to watch for a minute or two, but I also know people say that about baseball, and I would watch baseball all day long if I could. So it's just a matter of what you're used to. Hey, look, I left enough time to hear about the Dr. Kristen Lyerly show. What'd you have last weekend? What's coming up next?
Last weekend, we talked with Representative Ryan Spouty and candidate for state senate, Sean Grorich, about the policy of pride, some of the cool stuff that's happening in the legislature right now. Do you know that our LGBTQ plus caucus doubled in the last election?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I mentioned this last week, 4 out of the 5 elected state reps in Northeast Wisconsin are members of the community. So we talked about that, which was really cool. And then upcoming this week, we're going to talk to Alan Tipple from Men for Choice about why abortion is an issue for men too. I think often men are like, this is not my problem. I don't get it, but actually it is your problem and you ought to get it. And here's why. It's going to be a great conversation. My son Abe's going to be there. My partner Craig is going to be there, sharing different perspectives on how they approach this issue and why it's important for really all of us to understand the impact.
Is Craig tried to do the video games? Does he do better than you do, being an officer of the law and everything?
Oh, no.
No?
Craig,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
No, but he's great with his weapon, so that's the important thing for a police officer.
Yeah, that the real one, not the A or B or whatever. Alicia writes, esports are brain power. Absolutely. So, I mean, great kids. I'm just going to stick to watching the Packers and the Brewers, if you don't mind. A local update is next for some of you. If you're hanging around here, Kristen and I will continue to gab for a bit. And then when we all get back together in 15 minutes, we will spend a good chunk of time with Tracy Ann Mangold talking about divisions in the state Republican Party. And in our next hour, Francesca Hong from the Heart of America's Up North, live from Lake Wissota. Thanks for making this the place to spend part of your mornings. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Hey, coming up 30 minutes from now, Jimmy Kuska will help us wrap up the weekend in sports, Civic Media Sports Director. It is just about 7:23, and yes, we can hear you, Tracy Ann Mangold and Kristen Lyerly and Parker Olson, all with us here. as we continue on a Monday, June the 23rd. In the daily newsletter from Up North News, sign up for it at upnorthnewswi.com. The series on Food Network covering Wisconsin over the years continues, talking all about frozen custard and the difference between that and ice cream. And we mentioned earlier why Wisconsin has a big tie-in to today's National Typewriter Day, because the typewriter is a bit of a Wisconsin invention. So again, sign up for the newsletters. Head over to upnorthnewswi.com. Tracy, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Oh,
Sorry,
good.
frog.
Yep, that's all right. No, thank you for being here. Thought of you over the weekend when the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel story came out about state Republican Party Chair Brian Schimming. Now, the Democratic Party just elected a new chair to replace Ben Wickler. The National Democrats recently picked a new chair, and I got to say, Ken Martin has not had the smoothest start to a national party chair. But Brian Schimming is not new in the role. He's been there for 2 years now, and I think he just got re-upped for another 2 years, if memory serves. But he really has become a symbol of the divide between the two different factions of the Republican Party. How would you describe what it is that Brian Schimming is caught in the crossfires of?
I think you kind of have to go back to he's the first paid state chair that they've ever had. And so the belief was that, at the time, of course, I was still involved at the time, with his networking. I've known actually Brian since 1996 when I worked on the Prosser or the Detman-Prosser campaign for Congress. And Brian was on Prosser's team and I was on the Detman team. But so we go way back. But, I always thought with his networking, we thought with his, name recognition that he would be able to fundraise. And as you know, as a state party chair, that is one of your fundamental roles. And so I think they felt that, okay, if we make him a paid position, maybe that'll help kind of, increase his ability to fundraise for the state and compensate him as well. Obviously that, has not worked out so well. His fundraising numbers were not anywhere near what they expected. I don't have the stats on that, but that's been abysmal. He hasn't been able to fundraise. I've been told that he thinks 4 phone calls a day to fundraise is a lot, which, isn't. So
no, let me just show you Kristen and Pat's faces as we shake our head. No. 104 might be a good start on some fundraising days. But so you've stressed the fundraising here, not so much as the Journal Sentinel article from Molly Beck and Lawrence Andrea talks about disputes over the direction of the party and its leadership. But you're saying
that's
that
where
his
we get into the mud.
Okay, I was going to say
that's where
he didn't help his cause at all, and then you come into these other divides.
So when I was still secretary, even last year, because I resigned in July, going into the presidential election year and just 2024 in general, there was a lot of us who were frustrated because there was no strategic plan going into the election year. We kept asking, okay, what is the plan? What are we going to do? Typically, the state party chair will have a strategy or have some sort of thing put in place, whether it's offices around the state, improving, helping the counties, he didn't meet those needs, obviously. So I think that was a big part of the problem, was people were kind of like running around like, okay, what's the deal? He's going around to all these places and talking, which that's what he's best at. He's a blowhard. He's a talker. And a lot of people will say that he's a blowhard. There's a lot of talk, but no substance. So, then that boils down to the lack of unity in the party. It all kind of, domino effect. It's all kind of a domino effect, basically.
Okay.
Can we talk more about the lack of unity in the party, Tracy? Because you are so familiar with what's happening in the 8th Congressional District. And a lot of it, and the article cites this as well, comes out of the 8th Congressional District. Tell us about that.
And largely that is why I quit, among other things. I think we talked about this last time I was on, the reasons I did leave. And it wasn't just myself. the attacks. Now the 8th district, I'm trying to back up a little bit here. If you remember, Barron County GOP had their charter revoked, right? That set off a fireworks in the state, and all the county parties freaking out, like, what are you doing? You can't do this. A lot of people who didn't know what was happening there, why it was happening, why it was necessary. So that happened. Then you had all this outcry, and Schimming was the target for that. Well, then we had 3 counties, and we still have the 3 counties up in the 8th district, Oconto, Brown, and Wapaka, who bucked every rule, every constitutional provision, everything, and snubbed their noses at any sort of protocol within the party. They were endorsing out of, the chairmans were endorsing people. You're not supposed to do that. They were, working against us as the 8th District Executive Committee, attacking us because they were colluding with Turning Point. I mean, and when we approached Schimming saying, hey, you've got to do something about these counties because they're going to tear apart this election. They're going to mess with local elections. They're going to turn a lot of people away. Things are not good. There's a lot of internal strife. And Schimming would not do anything. He was afraid of the optics because as a presidential election, he's like, oh, no, we can't get into that. Well, how I describe it is like, it's when your child gets in trouble.
That's exactly it, Tracy. Hold the thought. I want to continue this when the rest of the group joins us on the other side of this break. No, we'll continue to explore it here with Tracy Ann Mangold and Dr. Kristen Lyerly. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio. Hey, no, not you, Kristen. Okay, I got the break times right, but hitting the buttons seems to be today's thing. We'll be back right after this. I think there was supposed to be some bumper music there, but we might have a little music problem over there in Madison. So we're back here with Dr. Kristen Lyerly and with Tracy Ann Mangold, and we are talking about what's happening in the Wisconsin Republican Party, starting with the 8th Congressional District in Northeast Wisconsin, where Tracy and Kristen hail from. And Tracy was a party official with the Republican Party there for a number of years before stepping away. Now there's talk that State Republican Party Chair Brian Schimming may be ousted from the job. And Tracy, as you've given us the background on this previously, Schimming was not a very prodigious fundraiser, especially compared to somebody like, say, a Ben Wickler. Yeah. But to me, the larger issue is that you have these county parties that break away and decide to do things on their own because they see Donald Trump doing it. They see him breaking the norms, breaking the rules, breaking the law, and it works for him. He wins elections. He gets to do whatever he wants. And so they think, well, why shouldn't we do the same thing? And somewhere along the line, you and maybe Brian Schimming and maybe others have to say, there still need to be rules and there need to be consequences for breaking the rules, or else why are we even a group?
Exactly. And I think, when you've got Trump doing whatever he wants, like you said, it legitimizes everybody from the, top down. And that's what you have with these people. And I believe that Brian is afraid of that's a lot of it is there's fear. I mean, you've heard some of the people in Congress saying, oh, they're afraid. Then why are you there? Right. And he said he won for Trump. He did not win for Trump. Trump won Wisconsin. Trump had staff here. Turning Point largely won it for Trump, but Brian Schimming and the state party did not do their job. And I mean, I'm not speaking in favor of that, but I'm just saying the facts is that they did not do their job. And, with the counties too, there is no outreach. There's typically a lot of communication. He's a horrible communicator. Andrew Hitt, the prior chair, was a great communicator. I feel he left too soon, and I know why he left, but, he had a touch that he worked with the county parties. He was, out there about with us, in his short time. Brian seems to be above that, or think he is. And right now, from what I hear, he is fighting the call to resign. They did not want him in again this last term, but at that time, there was nobody else. I think Brandon Malley, the former state party or county chair from Dane County and also a Turning Point executive, I think he recently is resigning from that post. But there was talk that he was going to run, and obviously that would have been worse. You don't want Turning Point because that's their agenda to take over. So it was kind of the lesser of two evils, is from what I heard, which obviously was not a good one.
So, Tracy, let's play this out because we know, and you know better than anybody, that across the state, there is a lot of division here. You've got this kind of ultra mega wing. That's what we see in the 8th CD with Brown and Oconto and Wapaka counties. And then you see the other folks they're pretty mega. I mean, they're Republican, but there's a giant division there. How does this resolve as they are looking at a new leader for the Republican Party, and who could potentially step in here?
That is a good question. At this time, I don't know. I honestly don't know, because the factions are so deep, within, and I can only speak to the 8th district. So, but the counties there, I'm out of touch. Obviously, there's some people I'm still very close to who are longtime friends, but in terms of the county parties, like say Marinette County, they have a new chair, and now she's gone, and now they have an interim chair. My mom, longtime Republican since age 17, she's 88 now. She resigned from the Republican Party because she is so upset by what's going on. And I've said to people, they're probably getting sick of hearing this, but President Johnson said, when you've lost Cronkite, you've lost the country. And I likewise with my mom in the Republican Party, when Shirley Kaufman leaves the Republican Party, something is very, very wrong. Because she is the one that you stand up and you fight to the end. You fight. And right now, I don't think there is a solution.
Let me game this out then in terms of, the Trump wing of the party and how far they're willing to go to get whatever it is that they want. And I'm going to put it to you very simply. If or when Donald Trump says, there's no reason I can't run for a third term, I'm going to run for a third term, there's going to be a block of Americans who are going to say, yep, bring that on. Do you think that's going to be the consensus of that particular group of Wisconsin Republicans as well?
That I don't know.
It's look, I get it's a damning thing to say about our friends and neighbors, but I mean,
it's scary because when you look at the comments on social media, right? When Trump does something, they're still unified behind him. I mean, there's some that aren't. There are some that aren't staying with him. But what bothers me are the people that are staying with him and the legislators that are. Now, we're talking about, of course, there's no checks and balances on him right now. But in order for him to actually do a third term, the only way that, it's not constitutional, but the only way that they could is a constitutional convention, which I've been talking about. It's a very long-reaching event that you'd have to cross a lot of, T's and dot a lot of I's to get to. But from what I've heard, there is active movement trying to get 2/3 of the states to sign up for it. And then we'd have a massive problem because they could go into if they have a constitutional convention, there are no rules, there are no barriers, nothing. So they could come in and say, oh, well, while we're here, let's cross off the right to women's right to vote. Let's cross off this. They could totally dismantle the Constitution. And yeah, I know I'm getting into the weeds here, but it's something we have to have in our heads, in our minds, and be prepared. That's the thing I'm telling people is this is not scare tactics. This is just being prepared and being smart and being educated.
And that's where I feel like I am coming from the left side of things, is that if there's a group of Americans that want to go there, then we're going to go there and we're going to finally address the Second Amendment, which was written for muskets. We're going to make sure that money is not defined as free speech. We're going to enshrine women's reproductive health rights. So yeah, there's people that want a constitutional convention to go way over to this extreme. I'm willing to go over to this not extreme. this place where most people are and say our country would be in a better place if we would go there. So I don't know. I think this, I've listened for years about calling for a constitutional convention. I don't think they understand the degree to which they're playing with fire in a country that would be forever divided.
Right. And right now is not, right now, the leadership that's in place, it would be complete disaster if such a thing were to happen. You don't have anybody with any shred of common sense in this administration that, gives a rip about the effects that would have. Look what they're already doing with our medical, with everything else, insurance, what have you. So I don't know. It scares me. I pray to God it doesn't happen, but it is something that I worry about because the ramifications of it, it's not something to be taken lightly.
So let's go back to the grown-ups in the room. Who are they in the Republican Party, and who might step up if Brian Schimming were to resign? Who could be the leader of Wisconsin's Republican Party?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I have people inside that are staying in to kind of hold the wall, hold the line.
Hold the door. Yeah.
Not because they want to be there, but because of the fact that, they're hoping that maybe they can see some stuff through and then get out. But I honestly, I don't anymore. I mean, Paul Farrow, he's had health issues. He was chair for a while. If he were 100% healthy, if he would come back, if he could be chair, somebody like him, I don't necessarily agree with all the policies, obviously, with the party anymore because I'm no longer in the party, but he's a decent man. I like Paul. Like I said, he's had cancer struggles. I hear he's doing well, but if he could get healthy, he'd be what I would, if I were going to say for the Republican Party, he would be the common sense person to get in that place. I would probably suggest get a separate fundraising person because I think that you have to have special chops to be able to do that. Ben Wickler was, one of a kind in that regard. And so I don't know. I think the Republican Party, I don't have a lot of hope for it. I think it has to be completely decimated and then re-brought up, which is what I'm trying to do in the other groups that I'm working with. But this current incarnation with what they're doing, they're not doing anything to help their counties, to help their people. They're just letting everything run ragged.
Kristen, let me follow up with your point there. Are you saying that it might have to be somebody who you thought they went away and they come back in, much like Ben Wickler was from Wisconsin, but he had all this national experience that he brought back to the state? Is that what you're seeing in a Mike Gallagher or a Paul Ryan or somebody like that you think might be where the Republicans have to go next?
They won't go there. I can guarantee you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but they won't go there. They won't. No, not even the more sane Republicans are. Paul Ryan is a little bit less. Mike, I can't see Mike coming back for that.
Well, that's what I was wondering if Kristen was going to think the same thing. Is like once you go, it's like this isn't Godfather 3. They're not going to bring you right back in. It doesn't work like that.
This seems like a consequence of the strategy that Republicans are using across the country. This fear and division that's been sown just creates chaos and doesn't make people feel like they belong, doesn't inspire people to step up and lead. It's almost like the leaders are the people who feel just like they have to do it because nobody else is going to do it. I don't know that that's the kind of leadership that has the vision that I want to be involved with. I want leadership that sees a future and says, let's create these things. Let's solve these problems. I just don't know where that comes from in the Republican Party in Wisconsin right now.
And you're right. I think the division is such that the real fear right now is if you get somebody who's a turning point person ends up being chair, then we're even worse. Even worse than with Brian Schimming. I'm at a loss. Like I used to be able to tell you, I could tell you a while ago, who I would think, who I could tell you, I can't even name names who I'd like to see because I don't want to speak for them. But like I said, Paul Farrow's probably the best choice at this time that I can think of. I'm sure there's others out there. I just can't think of them.
I think it's a commentary on extremism in politics, and you see to a lesser degree on the Democratic side as well, that good people who might want to do these kinds of things, they have no desire to, because they see that moderation is currently punished in so many political circles today, and it is just a crying shame. Tracy Ann Mangold, former top official with the 8th Congressional District Republican Party, thank you very much for helping shine some light on this.
Hope I did.
Well, as best we could. And Kristen's got a busy day ahead in the nation's capital, telling stories on this Dobbs anniversary. So we'll look forward to hearing more about that on Friday, I hope, Kristen.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon.
All right. Coming up next, a local update for some of you. Jimmy Koska will be along for the rest of us to talk sports. And in our 8 o'clock hour, we're back together and talking to State Representative Francesca Hong at 8:30. Again, these are your mornings powered by Up North News, live from Lake Wissota. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
You're listening to Civic Media. Find the latest news, information, and archives of all your favorite shows on the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us.
Civic Media Sports Director Jimmy Koska is here, too, to talk a little sports on this Monday, along with Parker Olson, Pat Kreitlow here in Chippewa Falls. Although, while we've got a moment here, I want to take you all behind the scenes as far as what's been happening here, because I told folks early on that I had a daughter who came out for the weekend with the two little ones, 6 and 3, and I could not believe, I knew they were going to leave sometime during the show they've got a long drive ahead of them. They were very quiet, got it all done. And my daughter texts and says, hey, we're ready to go. So during the last commercial break, I brought the kids in to say hi to everybody. So Parker, you got to see the little one, the 6-year-old, the 3-year-old,
very cute grandkids
waving. And that 6-year-old, I'd put the mic back on mute during the commercial, but I wanted to make sure you knew, Parker, that, Teddy came back up to the microphone and he looks at you guys and he goes, "It's nice to meet you." So just sweet kids. So now they're on their way, and I'm not crying. You are. So Jimmy's here, and we're going to talk a little baseball here. We're actually going to talk a lot of baseball pitching, because Jacob Mizorowski on Friday taking a perfect game into the 7th inning. After 5 innings of no-hit baseball in his debut. Jimmy, I don't know what you say other than we are watching something special.
He already got the call to the Hall. They sent his hat to Cooperstown, so we know that we can be hyped for the Miz, right? We can be hyped for this guy. I tell you what, following it on social media, and this is something if you're entirely online in your sports experience when you're out and about like I am, covering all these various sporting events that I go to, I'm following this along on social media, and it's rare that you get this these days, but like viral sports moments when they happen, whether it's Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever it is, when it happens in real time, you get so many great reactions to it. And for the Brewers, it's been a long time since we've had something like this with really any Milwaukee sport, since the Bucks were winning an NBA championship. But everybody was just blowing up about the pitches, the viral moment when he hits that slider inside on the batter, and the batter falls over on the plate. Like it was
oh my gosh,
really,
the
really
corkscrew.
Oh
my goodness. I mean, what more could you want? I mean, if you're his parents, I don't know if anybody has baby books anymore. You take a screenshot of that and you put that in the baby book.
Man, you're looking at the cover, like your phone lock screen, right? That's what you're doing with it.
It was just so crazy, but he's that good. And so now, I mean, yeah, the Brewers are playing tonight. They open up a series with the Pirates at home, and you can catch the pregame 6:05 tonight and 6:05 tomorrow. Yeah, let's get to Wednesday afternoon in the finale. There, it's going to be Jacob Mizorowski versus Paul Skeens for the Pirates. Discuss.
I first of all, if as a company we send people to baseball games, so if this was the one that you would
get in line, Parker's got the tickets first over here. He's
claiming. I might have them. I think I'm very hopeful because I want this game.
I mean, this is going to be hype beyond imagination. This is the regular season baseball. There's 162 games. I don't know if I've been this hyped for a regular season game in a long time. That hasn't been like a September clinch a playoff spot game. I mean, this is amazing. You get two of the best young pitchers in the game going head to head. That is incredible stuff.
Okay, well, now, of course, I got to bring the room down. I did feel this way about regular season games when this kid came up, and he was just phenomenal. His name was Garrett Mitchell. And I thought, well, this is it. And then he got injured, coming back from the injury, and then he injured his shoulder, and now he just re-injured that shoulder doing rehab, sliding into a base a little bit too hard. I mean, look, the kid, he's much younger than me, he's getting the paychecks, so there's no need to feel bad that way, but just how frustrating for him and for the fans that this phenom is probably now had another setback coming back to the Brewers roster.
It just happens that way sometimes, right? Where you just get injury after injury. It's been really disappointing because I think when healthy, it's an impact guy, and that's somebody you really want. But it's tough. Every time you read news about him and Wisrup too, just seeing his setbacks. These are pieces. The Brewers have been playing relatively well, but imagine them at full strength with some of these guys back from injury. I mean, these guys could really make a difference.
Oh my goodness, could they ever? Let's see, baseball for high school. We wrapped up on Friday congratulating the state high school boys champions. The girls high school championships took place on Saturday. Can you take us through the state champs there?
Yeah, sure. So girls soccer, it was pretty much dominated by largely southeastern Wisconsin schools. Division I champion was Muskego, 2 Brookfield Central, and 3 Catholic Memorial. Division IV was the Ozaki Random Lake Co-op. It was Xavier beating Ozaki Random Lake. Sorry. So you had 3 schools from southeastern Wisconsin winning state championships. Xavier getting it in D4. Of those champions, 2 private schools, 2 public schools. If you ever want to reignite that debate. But a lot of things in soccer. A lot of the sport is in the eastern or southern part of the state, so that's where a lot of the champions are from. A lot of the participants in the state finals as well. It was pretty much a sweep in the state finals, whether it was eastern or southern Wisconsin. It's really hard in a sport like soccer or like lacrosse or any of these other sports where you don't have. Like basketball, for example, has every school in the state participating.
Right.
With some of these sports like soccer, where not every school has a team, a lot of small schools don't have a team. It is a sport that's going to be largely dominated by the more urban areas in the state. So not really surprising at all that the champions, runners-up, are all from certain parts of the state there. But either way, as the final high school sports championship of this past school year, congrats to everybody for making it. I mean, it's so great to win state in a sport as a player, coach, whatever. It is so much fun as a community to rally around that.
Yep, and then the NBA season ended last night. Oklahoma City handily defeating the Indiana Pacers in Game 7, but the bigger story for Pacers fans, Tyrese Halliburton going down with, I guess they said you could basically hear his Achilles pop at that point, so he may be gone for a while.
Yeah, I mean, with him and Damian Lillard and Jason Tatum, everybody wearing the number 0 is now on watch for Achilles injuries. But, Oshkosh's own Tyrese Halliburton, you really feel bad. Once you saw that, your heart sinks to your stomach. You never want to see that with anybody. But, that's the way it's been in the NBA. There's been a lot of Achilles injuries, and hopefully he bounces back from this like the others.
Jimmy Kuska, thank you so much. We'll talk to you Wednesday morning.
See you Wednesday.
All right, thank you. Coming up in our next hour, State Representative Francesca Hong and Jane Matinaire, and the updated forecast from Brittany Merlot. I'm Pat Kreitlow. You're up north. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.